Next on Currents News, an exclusive interview with Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio as American bishops take new action on clerical sex abuse. The latest is next.
Catholics in the Brooklyn Diocese like PERSAUD are packing for the upcoming pilgrimage to Ireland to see Pope Francis during the World Meeting of Families. I'm Tim Harfman and I'll preview the trip.
And I'll speak with a Brooklyn Catholic family on why they're excited about going to Ireland. Plus, Aretha Franklin sang at the family's meeting 3 years ago. Tonight, she's being remembered around the world. The news starts right now.
It's very difficult to know what to do, what to say, and how to support people.
Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio describing the wounds the church is suffering because of clerical sex abuse. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Bishop DiMarzio is speaking out in an exclusive interview with Currents News as U.S. bishops announce a major new action plan to avoid repeating the sins and failures of the past. Currents News' Michelle Powers reports the latest.
People need excuses not to believe in the church. Well, they got plenty of excuses. You know, you can find it, and this does not help our credibility.
I sat down with Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio to hear his reaction to the extensive Pennsylvania grand jury findings that accuse the church there of hiding the abuse of some 1,000 children by more than 300 priests over a 70-year period.
The lurid details are so horrible. I mean, how could you even think that the church could deal with that and let it go? It sound like we just didn't do anything. This is not quite true.
Among the hundreds of victims in Pennsylvania is Jim VANSICKLE. He says he's still traumatized nearly 40 years after being sexually abused by a priest when he was 17 years old.
I think the Vatican and the Pope should be ashamed of himself. As a Catholic, I always was taught that we're all fallible. We're all going to commit sin. We were born with sin, and that our job is to lay that sin at the feet of Jesus and ask for forgiveness, and the church is not doing that for themselves.
The report comes on the heels of the resignation of one of the church's most prominent leaders, Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. The prelate stepped down after a church panel substantiated claims against him made during his tenure as a priest in the Archdiocese of New York.
The bell curve goes like this, way up and then goes down and tails off, and we're in the tail end of the situation.
The Bishop of Brooklyn points out that these allegations are from the past and says the report neglects to mention the strides the Catholic Church has made and continues to make. Just this morning, the United States Bishops' Conference established new goals that include opening new channels for complaints against bishops.
It's hard being a bishop at any time, but when you're dealing with these kind of terrible problems that shake the faith of normal Catholics, it's very difficult to know what to do, what to say, and how to support people.
In the Diocese of Brooklyn, there are many important measures in place to prevent abuse. The diocese alone spends $500,000 a year on efforts. The Office of Victim Assistance helps individuals who come forward with allegations. The office provides counseling, referrals for therapy, and other resources. Every employee of the diocese, including students, undergo mandatory training to prevent and identify abuse. Bishop DiMarzio meets with survivors and listens to their requests. And every year, the diocese holds a Mass of Hope and Healing, which they suggested. Michelle Powers, Currents News.
More now on the necessary changes the U.S. Bishops' Conference say are needed to heal, quote, a spiritual crisis brought on by past failings. Conference President Cardinal Daniel DiNardo is detailing new actions that include an investigation into questions surrounding Archbishop Theodore McCarrick, the opening of new and confidential channels for reporting complaints against bishops, more effective procedures to resolve future complaints against bishops, and substantial leadership from the laity to ensure the independence of investigations. Cardinal DiNardo says the abuse of children is a moral catastrophe, and he's vowing other steps will follow. And tonight at the Vatican, strong words about the Pennsylvania grand jury report. Chief spokesman Greg Burke says shame and sorrow best express church reaction to the accusations. He says the abuses described in the report are criminal and morally reprehensible. Burke goes on to call the acts betrayals of trust that rob survivors of their dignity and their faith. He says the grand jury report is taken with great seriousness at the Vatican. Pushback tonight from the Diocese of Rockville Center and its Bishop John Barris against the grand jury report and its claim that he didn't do enough when he was Bishop of Allentown in handling an abusing priest. A statement from the diocese calls that conclusion, quote, factually mistaken. The priest was barred from ministry before Bishop Barris arrived in Allentown, and the bishop reported everything about the case directly to the Vatican. The offender wasn't defrocked, according to the statement, so he could be kept at a secure facility and not allowed back into society as a layman. Boston's Cardinal Sean O'Malley will not attend next week's World Meeting of Families in Dublin. The Boston Archdiocese announced he will stay home to deal with the ongoing investigation of the city's main seminary. Unproven allegations of improper behavior at the seminary have been made. The World Meeting of Families celebration is the world's largest Catholic gathering of families, and the Pope will be there, and his Mass is expected to be the biggest event in Europe this year. Currents News and Crux are joining forces to bring audiences comprehensive coverage of the historic event. Currents News' Tim Harfman is heading to Ireland, along with Catholics from the Brooklyn Diocese, and tonight he previews the pilgrimage.
Ariel PERSAUD has mixed emotions as she packs for Ireland.
Really excited, a little bit, I guess, nervous to see what it'll be like.
She's one of nearly 50 pilgrims traveling over 3,000 miles from Brooklyn and Queens to the Emerald Isle. They'll spend a week at some of Ireland's majestic sites, including the Shrine of Our Lady of Knock, before joining many thousands of other Catholics for the World Meeting of Families.
I think it'll be exciting to see how different cultures come together to celebrate the same faith.
The highlight of the journey is a vigil and Mass with Pope Francis next weekend.
Anytime the Holy Father is at an event, it heightens the event for many, many, many reasons. So it's exciting.
Father GERARD SAUER heads the pilgrimage office for Brooklyn and Queens. After nearly 25 diocesan pilgrimages around the world, he says this is the first time to the World Meeting of Families. He hopes Catholics on the journey are able to gain lasting benefits.
People just are going to come home and know that they might not be the only one with a particular question or a particular family struggle or a particular family issue, or maybe I would say, wow, you know, through the church, we're doing okay.
The theme of the families meeting is the shared common home, something Ariel says her mother instilled in her at a young age.
Family life is everything. I think that you learn how you grow in your faith with your family.
In the society we live today, it's very hard to keep our families together, especially the young people.
Ariel is a college student and will travel with other young people from her parish, St. Gerard Majella in Hollis, Queens. She says the journey to Ireland is an opportunity to grow closer to one another.
This is one of the best ways you'd be able to bond with friends. I always say that friends that pray together stay together.
Staying together with Catholics from Brooklyn, Queens, and around the world. Tim Harfman, Currents News.
As we prepare for the World Meeting of Families, I am joined by three very special guests. Christian RADA is the Director of Marriage and Family Formation for the Brooklyn Diocese. He, his wife Helen, and young son Stephen are among the young pilgrims preparing to take this trip to Ireland, and they join us now. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that you guys made the time. Let's get right to it. The event is international, Christian, right? Hundreds of thousands of families are going to swarm into Ireland to experience the Pope and family. What does the RADA family expect to get from this event?
Well, we expect to find out even more deeply what does it mean to be a family. So Pope Francis and previous popes have said that the family is the basic unit of society. But what does that mean in a society that is constantly changing? So with the World Meeting of Families, we have different workshops and conferences and family events where we get to learn about what it means to be a family in this multicultural world.
Helen, what are you expecting?
This is our first trip traveling as a family, so I'm expecting to build lots of unforgettable memories and also to see our son grow and to be able to share the faith together in Ireland.
Now, it's a spiritual journey, obviously. How have you prepared for that? How have you opened up your mind, your heart, and your soul to take in everything that you're about to experience? Helen, do you want to start? Yes, baby.
Well, I've been doing a lot of prayer, and I've also been reflecting a lot, especially considering that we usually travel together as a couple, and now we have a third person, which is our child. And I'm reflecting on how I can use this experience to be a better mom and to be a better wife, and also to help my son grow in the faith as well.
Christian, what are you looking for? How will you break this experience down to Stephen in the years to come? What do you think you'll be able to tell him?
Well, first I would tell him is that you have an opportunity to be at a papal mass, and
not many people can say that.
Not many people can say that, no, and take lots of pictures, lots of videos to show him, and that just because he doesn't say words, you know, he says mama and dada, but he is praying. So when we're at mass together, he's going to be making those sounds. He's going to be following along like everybody else and responding and saying his prayers to God.
Christian, in your capacity with our diocese, what do you think you'll bring back to us? What do you think we will be able to experience through you?
So what we're hoping to do with the World Meeting of Families and the conferences and the lectures that we're going to be listening to is to bring what we're learning from different experts in the fields of marriage, family life, respect life, all of these different areas that affect the family, and bring it to the Diocese of Brooklyn with prayer services, with conferences and days of recollection.
How many families are going?
Well, we're expecting, we have around 30 to 40 individuals that are going to the World Meeting of Families, with Bishop Massa as our spiritual director and Father Chris Henue as our chaplain. So.
Helen, I want to give you the last word. What do you want from this experience when you come home, really quickly?
I want to be a better mom. Yeah. I want to be a better wife, and I want to learn. I want to learn more about my faith. I want to even get to learn more about Ireland as well, because it's a beautiful country.
Well, we've learned a lot about family and love through you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for being here, baby. We hope to have you back again soon.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
The World Meeting of Families begins next week at a time Irish Catholics are living through major changes affecting the faith. I'll anchor our coverage in New York starting on Monday. Currents News' Michelle Powers and Tim Harfman will report from Ireland. Crux's John Allen, Christopher White, Inez San Martin, Claire Jean Gravet, and Elise Harris will provide analysis and expertise directly from the Emerald Isle. Currents News and Crux will explore Irish Catholic traditions and the lives of modern-day believers, giving full voice to disagreements and challenges facing the Church. Coverage begins Monday on Currents News at 7:30 p.m. There's a lot more news headed your way on tonight's program. She performed for kings and queens and a pope. The remarkable life and times of the Queen of Soul is next. A Christian burial for a Korean War veteran many decades after he fell on the field of battle. And the Christian baker who went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court to protect his religious liberty is caught up in legal action again. Aretha Franklin singing for Pope Francis at the World Meeting of Families held in Philadelphia 3 years ago. The Holy Father applauded her stunning performance. Tonight, the world is mourning the passing of the legend of Motown. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, she wasn't just an extraordinary vocalist. She was an artistic phenomenon who crossed musical, racial, and gender barriers, conquering the charts in the late 60s and never turning back. She struggled with her health for years before losing her battle with pancreatic cancer. Tonight, we look back on a life well lived and a woman beloved. What you want? The Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, certainly garnered respect on and off stage. Born Aretha Louise Franklin in Memphis, Tennessee, the 4-octave range vocalist began singing at her father's church in Detroit. The incomparable songstress often credited him for nurturing her burgeoning talent.
Very early on, he taught me a number of things having to do with timing and phrasing and different things like that, and coaching me in different ways. He did say at one point that one day I would sing for kings and queens. He did say that. And I have.
Franklin won her first of many Grammys in 1967 for Best Rhythm and Blues Solo Vocal Performance for Respect.
It was a civil rights mantra. I perfectly thought it applied well. Everybody wants respect. Who doesn't want respect?
Respect put the Atlantic recording artist on the path to winning 18 Grammys. Throughout her incredible career, she also took home awards for hits like Chain of Fools and Freeway of Love. Franklin was also ahead of her time with a string of firsts. In 1987, she was the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and 7 years later became the youngest recipient of a Kennedy Center honor.
Some of the things that have happened are unbelievable. Who would have thought it? Right. But nevertheless, it did happen. God is good.
With her voice and her formidable achievements in music and film, such as the Blues Brothers, Aretha is often considered to be one of the greatest singers of all time. However, the woman who sang for kings and queens reveled in being good at the most important job in the world.
I've been a wonderful and a very good mother, and am a very good mother. That's what I am most proud of first.
A loving mother, a decorated diva, Franklin was most of all grateful for her music, her longevity, and her audiences throughout her career.
It's the love of the music, loyal fans.
And the incomparable Ms. Aretha Franklin did just that. Throughout her storied singing career, she lifted us all higher. Kings, queens, presidents, religious leaders, and millions of adoring fans were moved by her passion, spellbound by her music, encouraged by her activism. A nation, the world, in love with a diva. May she rest in eternal peace. Well, he refused to bake a cake for a gay wedding, and his case went to the Supreme Court. Now Jack Phillips is back in court, this time after refusing to make a cake for a transgender customer. When Colorado accused him of discrimination, he sued the state, claiming his religious freedom rights are being violated. In the first go-round, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed with him. The frantic search for survivors is still underway tonight in Italy. Rescuers are digging through tons of rubble after a large bridge in Genoa collapsed this week. At least 39 people died. Now the Italian government is investigating the company in charge of the span. The bridge collapsed following a violent storm that ripped through the Italian city on Tuesday. Closure tonight for a family in Kentucky. The remains of their loved one, a Korean War veteran who went missing in 1950, have been returned home for a Christian burial. Alexandra Cohn has the story.
Army Private Joe Stanton Elmore lost his life fighting in the Korean War.
It's a hometown hero coming home.
This soldier was missing for 67 years. A moment 83-year-old Mary BOWLIN never thought she'd see.
Now that it's here, we're going to cherish it.
Her older brother paid the ultimate sacrifice.
I prayed. Pray all the time. Don't ever give up.
Mary was 15 years old when he left.
There was a big void there, but I had dreams. I still had dreams that he'd come home someday.
In December of 1950, soldiers showed up to their Kentucky home to report that Elmore was missing.
My mother waited and waited. She would look for him every day, and she'd say, now he'll be coming one of these days.
They were able to identify him through DNA testing.
Me and my sister that was alive at the time, we gave our DNA, and we was hoping. You always hope.
Now this family has closure.
She can finally lay her brother to rest beside his brothers and sisters and her mom and dad.
One of the soldiers' family members, a Marine, was on the flight and stayed with the remains. Law enforcement officers and motorcyclists escorted the hearse down I-40. While decades have passed, Mary Bowlin says the pain still lingers, but now she has found peace.
I feel closure. I feel completeness. We're going to get to have him a Christian burial, finally, after all these years.
Elmore will be laid to rest in Albany, Kentucky at a family cemetery.
That was Alexandra Cohen reporting from Kentucky. A part of World War II history has been found in Alaska after nearly 3/4 of a century. Scientists have recovered a piece of the USS Abner Reed from the Bering Sea after the destroyer was ripped apart in an explosion 75 years ago. 71 U.S. Navy sailors died from the blast and their remains were lost at sea. Crews will examine the stern during a lengthy investigation. Still to come on Currents News, dramatic moments to save the life of a toddler buried under rubble after a landslide near a church. And a beaming dad is able to accompany his daughter down the aisle even though he wasn't there on her wedding day. We'll be right back. Oh, a heartfelt reunion between a mother and her 3-year-old son who was trapped under rubble for nearly 4 hours. The destruction was caused by a landslide next to a church in southwest China. The young boy was sent to the hospital as a precaution but has sustained no serious injuries. Finally tonight, a dream made reality thanks to 21st century technology. An Ohio woman considers her father a blessing, but a medical condition almost dashed her dreams of him walking her down the aisle. Kevin Landers tells us what happens next.
This is a story about a 100-year-old barn and an unbreakable bond between a daughter and her dad.
Oh gosh, sorry. He's just an amazing guy, and I'm very blessed for him to be my dad.
JANAE HAUGER's wedding day had everything except her dad.
For him not to be able to walk me down the aisle, it was very difficult because it's always been his dream to do that.
JANAE's father, Steve, remodeled this old hay barn, including this third-story catwalk, in hopes one day one of his 4 daughters would be married here. But a medical condition prevented that dream from happening. Well, sort of. Steve was in the hospital with severe pancreatitis.
There were thoughts of me not even getting married, and it was very hard because obviously I had the perfect man. I still wanted to get married and talk to my dad.
On the day of the wedding, she surprised her dad at the hospital so the two could share a father-daughter dance.
There was a lot of tears at first, and he just kept saying how beautiful I was and how gorgeous, and then he told me that I was his Carrie Underwood.
But there was more. Using an iPad, Dad was able to watch the wedding from his hospital bed from a live camera inside the family barn.
What do you think it meant to him?
Everything. He just kept saying he was just so thankful that we were there.
And when it was time to give away his daughter, technology answered.
He actually said her mother and I over the iPad.
Technology that allowed a dad to walk down the virtual aisle with his daughter and left the father-daughter bond unbroken.
We have an unbelievable relationship.
How sweet is that? We will be praying for her father's health and a happy marriage. God bless to everyone. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Please set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.